Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic, host of Bachelor Nation News. Happy Friday. This is a Week 3 recap for Golden Bachelor, the show that is sweeping the nation. In our thumbnail here, we have our Golden Bachelor right there, joined by Kaitlyn Bristowe. She, of course, was there to co-host the talent showcase. We're going to get into all of this. I take notes, read them back to you. No edits, no jump cuts, just me, you, and some random thoughts. Follow me on Instagram at DNeals for stand-up show updates and other photos and things like that behind the scenes, and also patreon.com/Dave Neal. I'll be live at 10 a.m. this morning if you want to be a part of what is becoming a wild behind the scenes community of members where you get to watch me kind of make the podcast and all of that. The podcast is free if you want that every afternoon, Bachelor Rush Hour. So we'll get into that. All right. Well, let me tell you what I love about the Golden Bachelor, because as you guys know, I've been away for the last 2 weeks and haven't done recaps on the show, but I am fully caught up. I love their use of silence to instill a sort of level of seriousness on this show. They open with a cold open, and you might know cold open from like SNL. It's usually a non-titled opening. It gets you right into the action. So on Saturday Night Live, the cold open would be when they go right into a sketch, and then afterwards, it's live from New York, it's Saturday night. Well, it's live from LA, and it's Friday morning. And their use of the cold open is Gerry, the first episode, putting his hearing aid in, going slow. Their use of the cold open in this episode is Gerry crying. Why is Gerry crying? We need to know. What have you done to make Gerry cry? It gets this interest. And it's one of those examples where sometimes they say, if you want to say something really important, the key is to not shout it, but the key sometimes is to say it quietly. Let the audience come to you. And in Bachelor in Paradise and so many aspects of The Bachelors, Colton jumped the fence. Clayton told 3 women, just yelling all these things. But then eventually we need to remember a well-told story can be your grandpa or whoever it is getting you around the circle, around the fireplace. And you can build that tension as it exists. So very good to see. And I have to remember that myself sometimes. I just try to yell through the camera. That's because that's more so because I'm just hopped up on coffee. Anyway, so we get into it. Gerry's crying. Why is he crying? Jesse Palmer reveals a full house group date. All 12 ladies, a dozen of them, performing in a talent show. So they get to the talent show and they see that Kaitlyn is there. She dazzles in a red two-piece set. Winner of the talent show gets a one-on-one date with Bear. Sandra does stand-up comedy, crushes with a boob joke. Susan does karate. Ellen teaches sex ed for her talent. Clayton's ex fling could use her help. How not to procreate. Faith sings a song for Gerry. April does some sultry singing. Nancy catches whipped cream. Real tangible skills. They kind of just go through them quickly, things that are very visual so they don't require much sort of background. Leslie does some dancing, a lot of hip popping, very, very, very 80s style. You can almost imagine the unitard and all of that. Gerry gives she gives Gerry the old lap dance. She's moving those hips. It looked like an Aleve commercial. You remember that? Joan's turn. All right, so Joan, let's go to Joan's image here. Where's Joan? Joan, so there they are, judging and everything. Jesse Palmer. I mean, a real trio of goodness here. Now, of course, the first thing people comment when they see Kaitlyn Bristowe on the show, why is she back? Just shut the hell up, people. She's back because she's the greatest Bachelor Nation alumni of all time. All right. I disagree. Who cares? Okay, it's an opinion. All right, so now we've got Joan. And that's, we get all of the editing done just so we can get to Joan here. She claims she has no talent. She said, I just hope I don't vomit on your shoes. And she turns that into a poem. And there's a callback at the end of the poem that kind of nails it. She does really great. So, of course, they were setting her up to be the, I'm nervous, I don't know if I can do it. And then what Joan proves is that while you can do a song and dance and chop karate and throw whipped cream in your mouth and you can do all these zany things, there really is nothing greater than the word, right? When it's used right. The other women show all their support for Joan. They're like, oh, I wish it was me, but I'm so happy it's her. I don't think we've ever seen such a level of gratitude amongst the women here. Here's my guess. And I don't know, this could be off. I'm not an older lady, but my guess is when you become a mom and you have kids, you become a matriarch. You become the kind of top of the pyramid, where then you kind of maybe live vicariously through your kids, your grandkids. You work towards the family. You become selfless. And then as you get older and older, you become a grandmother, and you really just, it is a giving, it feels like it's a giving tree type of moment. Now, what we're seeing here, and my guess is you lose a lot of friendships along the way. Friendships that you might have had from college. In college, everyone's a friend. You got 50. You know how many friends you have in your early 20s, and then the older you get, you're like, who do I even know? Whenever you're trying to move houses, you're like, who can I call to help me move? It's like, who have I talked to in the last 3 years? And it's usually nobody. So now we have that women in their 60s, 70s, and they're all living together. And my assumption and my guess is they're creating amazing friendships and actually having a much more youthful feminine energy. Again, I'm not, or youthful energy. You don't have to say feminine, just a more youthful energy, because they're able to relate with their peers in a way that I guess, or my guess is, they don't get to do too often. So when we see all the other women, and maybe I'm reading into this way too much, but when we see the other women support Joan, we go, oh, there is an interesting aspect of the show, because we are going to get into several of the women that are getting catty and that type of thing that just happens when you're competing after the same person. It would happen if it was the Golden Bachelorette. It would be the same deal. But when we see all of that, we go, oh, that's the difference in this Golden Bachelor experiment, is that they are older, wiser, and maybe less meddling in the superficial drama, even though they're not perfect. We'll get to that. So Joan gets the one-on-one dinner. They look great together. Gerry says a year after his wife passed away, he tried to date again. They share how they knew it was too soon. Joan is 2.5 years after her husband passed, and then Gerry makes a toast to Joan. The next morning, Joan calls her daughter, whom had a baby 15 days earlier via C-section. Cesarean section. Joan says her family needs her, and she selfishly came here to do this. And we're all yelling, stay, Joan, she's fine. Now, whether her daughter actually needed her or not, we're not too sure. My guess is the daughter was probably just feeling any normal feelings you would have 2 weeks after having a baby and all of this. And that Joan was like, I'm coming home. That was my feeling. I think they would have been fine without her. I don't know. Maybe it was life-threatening. We don't know any further, but that's my feeling. Joan has made a statement today saying her grandkids are fine. They call her JoJo. She's got 2 grandkids. Everyone's healthy and everyone's happy. So if you were wondering, that's what we know. Gerry has no clue what's about to happen. He's happily being escorted to the mansion. There's something funny about seeing an older man or woman riding in the backseat of a car. He's just sitting there all happy, because a younger person would be on their phone doing whatever, but he's just like enjoying his moment. The quiet confidence that Gerry has is something I think we can all look into. So poor guy, because he's just excited and has no idea. Gerry breaks down in tears. Hearing Joan has to go home. He says he understands, but is so disappointed. He said he was dancing this morning. He said he woke up dancing. We know Gerry likes to dance. He's got those moves. He does it, you know what I mean? And boy, what a bummer to hear that. And that's, of course, why Gerry was crying. All right, well, we jump over to Michael Costello, the fashion designer, who I guess my wife knows. I don't know if I have a photo of Michael. I guess I don't. So we'll get into Michael next. It's our Pretty Woman, Pretty Woman date, which is where they dress someone up and make them feel super special. Gerry talks with Ellen about his poor days. And being so poor, he'd invite his parents over because they'd bring the groceries. Which, by the way, that's so funny, because every one of us knows, like, when you can afford to go home and do your laundry there or get a warm cooked meal, it's so great. That's what I miss the most about being on the other side of the country, is I can't have those moments, those simple moments with family. Whenever I go home to visit family, it's always a big deal. I just want those simple moments. That's why maybe if I do move back east, I don't have any hard plans to. Although we are looking into New Jersey. Maybe. I don't know. You know what I mean? Trying to get closer to family. Gerry talks with Ellen about those poor days, and Gerry shares Neal Lane earrings. He gives Neal Lane earrings. And, of course, he got those from Braden's jewelry box. But that's a different story. The women back at the house start to get a little stir crazy as it happens. Kathy goes to Gerry and says guys are mean to her. Every season, regardless of age, this is what we see happening. Now, Gerry rewards Kathy with a rose, and that shuts up old Gare Bear. Here's the thing about Kathy. Everyone's trying their best with the information they have. She does seem cynical. She does seem like one of the more cynical people, kind of scowly, whatever. So when Gerry says, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe they were mean to you, I'm thinking, oh my, are you kidding me? Kathy clearly is the instigator here, but, whatever. Gerry rewards Kathy, and then Kathy roasts Teresa, and Teresa immediately apologizes. Kathy roasts her, and she's like, I'm sorry. And Kathy's like, no. And Kathy keeps pressing into her. And I'm sure when Teresa watched this back, she's probably like, man, F Kathy. Leslie says she doesn't want to hear the drama, so she just turns down her hearing aids. And then we get to the rose ceremony, which we say goodbye to Edith and Christina, and the beat goes on. So we're down to 10 people. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did I miss anything important here? Are you enjoying this season as much as the ratings may suggest? My guess is it's going to continue to pick up steam as we continue to get to more emotional moments of joy and loss and everything in between. Now, my question for you in the audience, have you found a reason to dance this morning? Let me know in the comments section. And if the answer is no, let's go find that reason. Let's all take a note from Gerry's page and dance a little bit more. We'll be back right after this.